Ready to dive into some seriously challenging philosophy? We're tackling Friedrich Nietzsche today, specifically his book Beyond Good and Evil.
Just that title alone, right, get you thinking.
No kidding. So we're talking challenging assumptions, morality, even truth itself.
He really went there. Nietzsche wanted us to confront the stuff we usually avoid. It's uncomfortable, but that's the point.
Sounds intense. Before we get into all that, though, Nietzsche the person, his life was kind of a wild ride.
Understatement. You don't spend your life questioning everything and come out, well, normal, right?
And his mental breakdown, that was.
Tragic. He spent his last decade completely incapacitated. There's debate if it was syphilis, but still.
Wow. To have such a sharp mind. And then, okay, so elephant in the room time. The Nazis, they were big fans, weren't they? That's always made me hesitate to dig into Nietzsche.
Yeah, that's one of history's biggest misunderstandings. It's like they skim the Cliff's Notes and miss the point entirely.
So what's the real deal then? How do you square that with his actual philosophy?
Nietzsche was all about individual freedom, questioning everything. The Nazis twisted his ideas, but he was against blind obedience to any ideology.
Okay, good to know. So how did that independent thinking play out in his work?
One of his biggest ideas was this will to truth. Imagine this deep human need to uncover truth no matter how hard it gets.
Sounds noble enough, right? So what's the catch?
Well, Nietzsche also knew that truth is slippery. What's true for me might not be true for you. It's all about perspective.
Ah, so it's not as simple as just finding one big truth with a capital T.
Right. He even suggested that sometimes those comfy illusions we hold might be more helpful for living than some harsh reality.
You're saying ignorance is bliss.
It's a radical idea, right? But he argued that clinging to those easy answers keeps us stuck. It's when we question, when we embrace uncertainty, that we actually grow.
Takes guts to admit you might be wrong.
Exactly. Nietzsche used this image of the Sphinx, the riddle-asking creature. To move forward, we have to be like that, daring to ask the tough questions, even if the answers make us squirm.
Love that analogy. And speaking of tough questions, let's talk morality. Beyond Good and Evil, even the title is like a slap in the face.
He wanted to shake things up. He went after traditional morality, especially Christianity. He called it slave morality.
Slave morality. Okay, break that down for me.
Think of it like this. Values of humility, compassion, selflessness. The stuff associated with, well, people in weaker positions.
I'm seeing where this is going.
He argued those values were actually a way to control the strong, to maintain the status quo.
So turning the other cheek is a power move.
You got it.
Yeah.
And he contrasted this with what he called master morality. Think boldness, ambition, asserting yourself. Not always pretty, but to Nietzsche, that's where real greatness came from.
So more like, blessed are the bold.
Exactly. He loved that Viking ideal,
Yeah.
Strength, even if it went against the usual ideas of good and bad.
Okay, Vikings, strength, going against the grain. Is it just me, or is this starting to feel a little intense? Because honestly, my first thought was, wait, is Nietzsche saying it's okay to just steamroll people?
That's a great question. And a really common misunderstanding. He wasn't advocating for some might makes right free-for-all.
Okay, good. So what was he getting at then?
It all comes back to this idea of self-overcoming, this constant push to become stronger, better, not compared to anyone else, but to who you were yesterday.
So less about dominating others, more about mastering yourself.
Exactly. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Nietzsche believed that suffering was actually crucial for growth, like essential, not seeking it out, but
When it finds you, you don't shy away.
you use it. Think about it. When do we really discover our strength? When things are easy? Or when we face challenges, when we hit our limits and have to push past them?
Okay, so maybe less like a Viking raid, more like, I don't know, training for a marathon. It's still brutal, but you're doing it for you.
Perfect analogy. And it ties into his ideas about discipline, about seeking knowledge. He didn't think any of that was easy. You have to be willing to be tough on yourself, to go against what's comfortable.
To question everything, even your most deeply held beliefs.
Especially those. He's really pushing us outside our comfort zones here.
Yeah, no kidding. So who did he think could handle this level of, like, self-interrogation?
He called them the philosophers of the future.
Oh, I like that. Philosophers of the future sounds almost like a superhero team.
Right. These are the people who can actually handle the truth, who aren't afraid to question, to stand alone if they have to.
That takes serious guts, and it makes me wonder, are those qualities, those philosopher of the future qualities, are they even valued today? Like, what does it even mean to be a free spirit when it feels like everyone's telling you what to think?
It's the question, isn't it? And it's something Nietzsche tackles head-on in Beyond Good and Evil. He dissects everything, morality, truth, power. And in doing that, he gives us this glimpse into a way of thinking that goes beyond those old categories.
So if we were to crack open Beyond Good and Evil right now, what kind of stuff would jump out? Like, what screams Nietzsche in this book?
Well, right off the bat, there's this line. The falseness of an opinion is not for us any objection to it. He's straight up challenging this idea that truth is the be-all and end-all. He's saying sometimes even a false belief, if it helps you live a better life, maybe that's more valuable than clinging to some harsh reality.
Whoa. Okay, so fake it till you make it applies to, like, our entire belief system.
In a way, yeah. It's about realizing that sometimes what we think is true is actually holding us back. And maybe a little bit of, well, reframing can be freeing.
That is radical. Okay, hit me with another Nietzscheism. What else is in this book?
Another one. Why should you make a principle out of what you yourselves are and must be? He's calling us out on this very human thing we do, projecting our own limited experience onto the entire universe.
It's like we look around and say, well, this is how we do things, so obviously this is the right way for everyone.
Exactly. And then there's this line that gets at the heart of his whole skeptical project. Supposing that nothing else is given is real, but our world of desires and passions. He's questioning the very nature of reality here. What if everything we experience is just a product of our own subjective experience?
Okay, that's some next-level mind-bending stuff. He was like the original existentialist.
Way ahead of his time. But he wasn't just thinking about these huge, abstract ideas. He also had some very strong and often very controversial opinions about society, about gender roles, about how power actually functions.
And this is where I think we have to acknowledge that some of his views, especially on women, haven't aged well, to put it mildly.
Yeah, some of what he said about women is just not okay, not then, not now. But we have to remember he was writing in a very different time.
So we can't just write him off as, like, a total misogynist.
It's complicated. Some of his language is just unacceptable. But then there are moments where you see this glimmer of insight. He understood how power structures shape our values and how those structures often work against women.
So even if he didn't always get it right, he was at least aware of the inequality. It seems like with Nietzsche, it's always this mix of brilliance and then, well, some stuff that's just really problematic. Pushing boundaries, forcing people to confront hard truths.
He definitely knew how to make people uncomfortable. And that's part of what makes him so fascinating. His ideas are still generating debate, new interpretations. He makes us question our most basic assumptions about ourselves and the world.
It sounds like he was really good at pushing people's buttons.
He knew how to get people thinking, and that's a big part of his legacy. But it wasn't just about stirring the pot. He genuinely wanted us to question, to break free from what he saw as restrictive moral codes. He wanted us to embrace a more authentic way of being.
So where does this all leave us? Building our own values, grappling with these huge questions. It's a lot to process. One thing I keep coming back to is this idea of the religious mood, which feels kind of ironic given how much Nietzsche criticized religion.
It's definitely one of the most misunderstood parts of his work. Yeah, he wasn't into dogma, thought it held people back, made him sheep. But he also saw the power of what he called that religious experience, that human need for something bigger, for meaning that goes beyond the everyday.
So not about like going to church every Sunday, but finding your own spirituality. Is that what he was getting at?
More about recognizing the mystery of existence, the wonder of it all. Nietzsche thought that feeling could inspire us to create new values, could go beyond those old ideas of right and wrong, to tap into this raw energy. He called it the Dionysian spirit of life.
Dionysian spirit of life. Sounds intense.
It is. Think of Dionysus, the Greek god. Celebration, revelry, even a bit of chaos thrown in. Nietzsche felt that energy was essential for creativity, for really experiencing life fully, not being afraid of strong emotions, the shadows, the contradictions, embracing them even.
So we've gone from questioning morality to embracing chaos. I love it. Nietzsche was always about pushing boundaries, shattering those illusions, forging his own path. It's no wonder he's inspired so many artists, writers, thinkers. His fingerprints are everywhere.
Exactly. Existentialism, postmodernism, even psychology, literature. He gave us this whole new language for thinking about the human experience, exploring those connections between power, knowledge, our own desire to create.
He even used language in this really unique way, right? It wasn't just the ideas, but how he expressed them.
Totally. He wasn't just writing philosophy. He was performing it. aphorisms, paradoxes, these poetic flourishes, like he was trying to shake you awake intellectually.
He wanted us to see the world with fresh eyes,
Yes.
not just accept what we've always been told.
That was his genius. He didn't give you some neat little system. He gave you the tools to dismantle systems, to question, to embrace that chaos of being alive.
So after this deep dive into Nietzsche's uncomfortable truths, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling possibility, definitely, but also a healthy dose of, whoa, that was a lot. He really makes you think. And that's not always comfortable.
No, it's not easy work. But he reminds us that this search for meaning, it's a journey, not a destination. It's about asking those tough questions, embracing uncertainty, and striving to become a little more, well, a little more us.
He truly was a philosopher of the future, pointing us toward a horizon that's always kind of out of reach, always beckoning us to explore further, question deeper, maybe even find our own way beyond good and evil.